Welcome back for part two of our two-part conversation with Adam Chaucer. If you missed it, make sure that you check out part one so that you don't miss anything. Welcome to the Plan B CRNA podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Jones, and I'm so excited that you're here. The Plan B CRNA podcast is the only show made specifically for nurse anesthetists who are exploring options outside of their traditional career paths. This is the place to expand your mind and your goals as we uncover new ways to produce side income together. Join me for some honest, unscripted discussions with other CRNAs who are transforming their financial lives. This episode is brought to you by On-Call Capital. On-Call Capital is dedicated to educating CRNAs and other healthcare providers about investing outside of the traditional stock market. On-Call Capital also provides opportunities for you, yes, you, to create passive income and generational wealth while also lowering your taxable income through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now so that you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for joining me today. And now, on with the show. So Adam, one of the big things when we talk about investing are it's tax implications. When I am talking to people about investing in apartments, there are huge tax implications for investing in apartments versus the traditional stock market. And those are advantages that high net worth individuals can really take advantage of. Are there any kinds of advantages to investing in venture capital that are similar to that provide maybe some tax advantages for people?
Absolutely. I mean, so most of your investments in these private companies, they're not quick turnarounds. A normal company usually takes 5 to 8 years, from kind of original investment to when you actually see a payment. And again, that's if the company is acquired or goes public. And so, if the company is acquired, there's a lump sum of money and that gets paid out to the investors. If it goes public, any of the shareholders, then have an opportunity to hold on to your stock or sell your stock. It's up to you. But, any kind of liquidation event, meaning like an acquisition or going public, any kind of liquidation event and under 12 months, gets hit with short-term capital gains tax, which can be pretty significant. The reality is for most of these kinds of investments, most of them fall way outside of a 12-month period. So, then you're looking at long-term capital gains. There's a thing called QSBS. It's qualified small business stock. And so with that, any company that you own stock in that is valued at less than $50 million can qualify for this stock. It's something that I'm trying to remember the year 1993, something like that, was developed to kind of encourage people to invest in these kinds of investments because they can be very risky. So it's also for people that go to work for startups. A lot of times they get stock in these companies, and they might be able to go into a more established company, but they're trying to encourage new companies to form and people to go to work for these companies. So this QSBS or qualified small business stock, the company's valued less than $50 million at the time of your acquisition of the stock. And if you hold it for over 5 years, when there is a liquidation event, it's possible for it to qualify for tax-free, status. So no capital gains taxes on that investment. So that's a significant, amount of money that you'd be saving. I mean, it's, again, if we're talking about, let's use, for example, a $25,000 investment, it's not unreasonable to think that some of these companies could 100x. I mean, most of the companies that we invest in, we're aiming for, somewhere between 50 and 100x returns. Knowing that some of those aren't going to happen and some of those that do happen are going to balance out, the ones that don't happen. But it's very reasonable, 20x, 30x, 50x returns. So let's just, for example, say you have a 100x return. So your return is $2.5 million on a $25,000 investment. normally you would then pay capital gains taxes on, all that money above your $25,000 investment. So with this QSBS, it's possible that there's no capital gains taxes, which is a huge game changer. So that's another reason to invest early and invest in some of these private companies, because when you can get in early, it's possible for it to qualify for this tax exemption.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, you're talking $500,000 right there.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
Now, Adam, I would think it would be easy for people to basically look at this as just another stock investment. And so how is investing in private companies different from investing in a regular stock market company? What are the returns like, and how is that different from what you can expect with a standard stock market investment?
There's a Cambridge study that analyzed about 25 years of returns in different markets and stuff. And so the S&P 500 had an average of like 9.5% returns a year. So when they looked at private equity, or when they looked at venture capital across all phases, Series A, Series B, Series C, all that, the returns were about 36%. So we're talking about 4 times as high as the S&P 500. When they looked at just early phases, meaning like pre-seed, seed, maybe even Series A, it was more about 60% annual returns. So significant returns. This is over 25 years too. So, not just a small sample size. It's looking out, consistent returns over a long period of time. So that's another reason why people get involved with these kinds of investments, because you can do, if you put your money in the stock market, if it's returning 7% a year, it's going to take 10 years to double your money. So it's a nice, I was going to say slow and steady, but I think lately everybody's numbers have kind of gone backwards. So it's really not, as safe as everybody, may think that it is. But, that's 7% a year, so it's going to take you 10 years to double. There's, other safer investments where you may be able to double your money in, say, 4 or 5 years, with the venture capital, private equity kind of stuff. You're looking at not doubling your money, but potentially, 10x, 20x, 30x, 50x your money in 5 to 8 years or 10 years. So it's a longer, you invest your money, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind for a longer period of time. But as that money kind of goes to work, it usually comes back many, many times over.
Wow, that's incredible. And that's a huge difference when you talk about the tax implications and the whole, comparison to the stock market. It just continues to reaffirm my belief in alternative investments as, more of the future than the stock market is at this point, because the stock market it carries so much inherent risk in it. And not that you shouldn't have part of your portfolio there, but should it be the continued focus and bulk of your portfolio? I continue to see information that runs contrary to that belief.
Yeah, so I think it's important, to have investments in both. That way, when there's one market that's doing well, it may be able to prop up another market that's down. For example, generally in these markets like we've had lately, where it's like bloodshed in the stock market and everybody's 401k is losing money. In general, the venture capital private company world is a little more insulated from that, especially the earlier you go. I mean, there's some companies that have previously been valued at over $1 billion that have since kind of retracted and now are, valued less than they were and had to lay off some employees and stuff like that. But generally, the earlier they are, they're almost kind of insulated, from those fluctuations that's affecting all the other markets so much. So, I feel like that is important to keep in mind, and it's just a good idea to have various types of investments and not all your money in just one kind, because then if there's big fluctuations or changes, you're going to be a lot more impacted if all your money is in one type of investment than if you have it spread out.
No, I completely agree. Now we've talked a little bit about access because that was one of the key problems, and your company is working to solve that. How are you fixing the education piece and the outreach piece that really kind of gets this in front of people that don't know that this is an opportunity that they could have?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I'm not much of like a salesperson, and so I like to just kind of put the facts out there, and I like to reach out to people and tell them about these opportunities, but I try not to be pushy about anything because that's something that turns me off, from opportunities and stuff. When somebody's kind of too overwhelming or too overbearing, it has the opposite effect on me. So I have started, much like what you do. I have like a monthly newsletter. It's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. I sit down and I kind of crank one of these out, and I really enjoy. I'm like, I'll read through it several times. I'm like, man, it's so cool. Just again, because it's so different than our CRNA careers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but one reason why I feel like CRNAs are so well equipped for this is, we're all very intelligent. I feel like most of us are very, analytical because, sitting in a classroom and, you're breaking down all this information, and you're really having to dive deep into it, to apply it to, what you see in the hospital or, in the operating room. So, we're well equipped for this kind of stuff. And we're also risk takers to an extent. Like I really never would have considered myself a risk taker. I'm more, kind of stay between the lines here. But all of us gave up, pretty good paying jobs to go back to school, to acquire six-figure debt, to advance our careers. And so I think that takes a special person, to give up the comforts that you have to then pursue something else, that's hopefully bigger and better, but is going to set you back, with your family or time wise or financially, whatever, to do so. So, these opportunities that I bring forth aren't just for CRNAs. However, like I think we're part of like the greatest profession like that exists out there. And so I feel, I'm super grateful that I've gotten involved in these investments. So my goal is to like share it with as many CRNAs as possible because it's been a great profession to me, the anesthesia side, and I want other people that are like you and me to be able to benefit from this as well. With that said, it's definitely open to anybody. I've got some friends and family members and neighbors and stuff like that take part in it. So it's definitely not restricted to the anesthesia community, but I do send out a monthly newsletter, that breaks down different things. Sometimes it's investment opportunities. Sometimes it's just educational, kind of filling people in on maybe some terms that they've either never heard before or they've heard, but they have no idea what it means. So that's kind of a passion project for me is really just kind of pouring in to these monthly newsletters and to get that information out to everybody. Likewise, we have our first like annual investor, strictly just for the investors in this rolling fund that we have. We have that coming up in a couple of weeks. It's in Dallas, and so everybody that's participated in any of these quarterly rolling funds with us is invited, and the founders of these different companies that we're invested in are invited, and some of the other venture capitalists and stuff from different firms that that we have some involvement with or maybe in attendance. And so it's really cool. Like it's gonna be fun to kind of see everybody. Let some people that don't know myself and my partner and some of the other people kind of put like a face to the name. Yeah. So other than that, like man, there's not really a ton that I do. I really my goal is for it just to kind of grow organically, and as people start to see some significant returns, for them to like I want to share it with other people, for them to share it with their family and friends and coworkers and stuff like that. So, I probably should be more active in pushing it out, to people and stuff, but as discussed, there's lots of opportunities out there, whether it's real estate or it's crypto or it's, private companies and VC kind of stuff. And so I want to get the information out so people can make an educated decision, and judge for themselves on, what they want to do and what they don't want to do. But at the same time, like I don't want to shove it down their throat. So I try to kind of have a hands-off approach. But I don't know.
It's tough. It's tough to strike that balance. It really is. And I say that from experience, because you don't want to just, blast people with this, sales pitch kind of message. But at the same time, like, people need to see something from you, and they need to see the opportunities that are available and be able to make that educated decision. So, but like you said, it requires that balance. And which is a great segue into my next question, which is, like, I mean, obviously you're still working as a CRNA. How are you balancing this anesthesia career with this other stuff? Because you're in the OR during the day. A lot of business happenings go on during the business hours. So are you doing a lot of this at night? Are you, having days off where you can focus on this kind of stuff? How does that work for you in trying to balance your anesthesia career and this side project that you have?
Yeah, well, it's a work in progress. I can say that because it's, again, if you had asked me 10 years ago if I was going to be involved in this, I'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know anything about that world. Like, how would I? And now, like, when I think forward, I'm like, man, part of me would love for this to be my full-time job, and maybe one day it is. And it's tough because I love anesthesia so much too. And I'm like, I can't see a day in the near future where I'm like, hey, I don't want to do anesthesia at all. Mm-hmm. I do think our job is great of a, profession as it is. I do think there's a lot of stress that comes with it. And I think a lot of times we don't realize how much stress we're under until you kind of step away. So I would love to, like you said, maybe create a little bit better balance, because it is hard, run. So basically I have an office-based and surgery center-based anesthesia company that I formed about 7 years ago. So it's called Trident Anesthesia. It's been, that was my original passion, was doing that kind of stuff. And it still very much is a passion of mine. I'm continuing to kind of pick up new places and, grow in certain areas and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, but it is a lot of work. And I'm kind of spread out over a lot of different cities in the state of Texas. And so it can be challenging to kind of, keep up with everybody. Because the hardest thing, I think, is, people going to work and not seeing them for long periods of time, and them feeling very disconnected. Mm-hmm. And like they're just like a cog in the wheel. And that's my biggest concern is, like I want to stay engaged with the places that I go to work at, and stay engaged with the people that are working with me, to keep everything moving. So basically, I was doing that full time. And then when I started doing this, as you said, it takes up a lot of time. If you're doing it right, it takes up a lot of time, because you're trying to stay on top of things, and stay in touch with investors and different companies and stuff like that. So it is kind of my like nights and weekends job. But as things have gotten busier, and I've realized that I've got to kind of carve out more time for it. And having a family, a lot of times that can be really challenging, to dedicate enough time to the family and enough time to job one, enough time to job two. So it's definitely a work in progress. I'm kind of in the process now of, again, not stepping away by any means, but kind of cutting back just a little bit on some of my anesthesia work, mm-hmm. to allow more time for, conversations and emails and stuff like that, involving the venture capital stuff.
Well, and it sounds like you're trying to lead more of a well-rounded life. I mean, because you do have your family to think about, and these aren't the only two passion projects that you have. You and your wife are involved in, some different ministry work, and I'd love to hear more about what you're involved in there, because obviously, it's one thing to help others financially, but it's another thing to help out in other ways, socially, mentally, spiritually, all those kinds of things. So tell me about some of that other stuff on the outside that you're really involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of get there, like basically I have, this anesthesia company, and it's, that puts food on my table, basically like that's our steady income. Um, and so, I use that to make a living and provide for my family. Also, I use some of that money that I make to pour into the investments that we make. So, those two companies are kind of linked, not necessarily finances linked, but some of the, money that I work hard to make then kind of flows over and is invested in these companies through HE Collective Capital. So, then the goal with that is for the money that's made there, again, to provide for our family, but also enable us to do a lot of things, in our community and support different companies and organizations in our community. So we're involved. It's crazy how, you just kind of, if you kind of take a step back and try to kind of plug into something again that you're passionate about, all the different opportunities that come about, from those opportunities. So we started a nonprofit organization. Really, my wife started it. She's pretty amazing. She's the engine behind it all. I'm just lucky enough to be affiliated with her and kind of ride. So I am involved in it, but she's the go getter. I mean, she's the visionary, and is just really great at what she does. So we have a nonprofit called Re-Ministry. It's a Christian-based nonprofit organization for high school boys based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So basically, we put on two big conferences a year. And so this is for high school boys, kind of, I mean, really, it can be all across the country. I mean, that's the goal, is to get kids from other states. That's probably more of a long-term goal, but right now, kind of focusing on the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex, and then maybe even some of the surrounding cities. And so we put on these conferences, and it's really amazing. Like, it's been very rewarding for me. Like, it's challenging from a time perspective, and from a financial perspective, but once you're there and you see like the impact that it's having on these high school boys, it's really amazing. We have three boys of our own. They're younger than that. We didn't necessarily start it for them, but it very much, is going to be for them and some of their friends and, other kids and stuff like that as the years go on. And so it's really, really neat just to kind of see all these kids from different backgrounds come together and just, basically be poured into for a weekend. So that's really, really cool. And then we're involved in several different things. We're committee members for Young Life Arlington, which is also like it's a high school boy and girl organization. And so we're very involved with Young Life and big supporters of Young Life. And then I'm also a board member on an organization called 100 Men Who Give a Damn. And so it's really, really neat. I was invited to it probably about 2 years ago, and kind of just recently come onto the board to help them. And so it's basically, they're not a nonprofit. I mean, they bring nonprofits in quarterly, and we meet at a bar or a restaurant, just kind of anywhere where we can gather. And a nonprofit basically comes and explains what they do, and tells everybody about them. And we have 100 guys who all pledge to be there and donate $100. And so that nonprofit walks away with at least $10,000, to go towards their expenses and stuff. And so it's so cool because, again, it's people from all different walks of life coming together, supporting different organizations, and it's an hour of your time and $100 of your money, and then you see this huge impact that comes from it.
That's really, really neat. And I mean, this whole conversation, I've really had a lot of fun today, getting to know more about what you're doing. And I really, really appreciate your time today. I know we've run over, but I want to give people a chance. If they are interested in learning more about venture capitalism and some of the companies that you're investing in, how can they get a hold of you to do that, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's www.agcollectivecapital.com. You can go to the website. There's, I think, a lot of good information on there. A lot of stuff that kind of explains if anybody's still like a little confused at what exactly it is and what kind of stuff we're involved in. There's all the information's on there. There's a list of all the companies that we've invested in. It's not completely up to date, but it's got the majority of the companies, so you can kind of scroll through and just kind of see what all kinds of stuff we're involved in. So you can go there. My contact information's on there as well. You can email me, agcollectivecapital@gmail.com. You can reach out to me. I mean, text, phone calls. Basically my number is 817-727-0985. So I'm always open to hopping on a phone call. Again, I think when it's something that you're passionate about, it's really easy to talk about, and I love to talk to people about it. But again, there's that fine line of not, being too pushy about it. So if anybody has any questions, reach out to me. I would love to schedule some time to discuss it and see how it fits into, your financial, picture and what kind of stuff, you're looking to be involved in. On the website, there's also a form. You can go on there and enter your information, and it'll kind of send that information out to me and can get you plugged into the monthly newsletters. Because that's, again, the other way you can be involved is to sign up to receive those monthly newsletters. And again, that's educational newsletters, but also you have some investment opportunities that are sent out to you as well.
Very cool, man. Well, this has been a blast, and I'm going to have you back on in guess 8 months, a year, something like that, maybe even sooner, just to get an update from you on how some of these businesses you've been investing in, how they're doing, how they are continuing to mature. So definitely want to make sure we keep in touch, and best of luck to you in the future.
Yeah, I would love to. There's, again, we've got several things that are looking very promising right now. So I would love to follow up with you and kind of lay some of that out and kind of describe the process from beginning to end. And then again, hopefully get some people that are interested in it but don't know where to start. Hopefully be able to get them in as well.
Cool, man. We'll keep in touch, and we'll talk again real soon.
All right. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you. Adam speaks with such a calm confidence about investing in venture capital. And that comes from his own experience of setting a plan into motion and then seeing it work out over time. I also really appreciate that he's using his gains in the investment world to enrich his life and those of others around him. I talk a lot about balance in our own lives, and while it's hard to achieve, we all have our own balance that works best for us. And the same is true when it comes to serving others and ourselves. That's going to do it for the show. If you like to reach out to Adam, make sure that you check out the show notes for his contact information. This is Bobby Jones signing off. Until next time, be safe and take care of each other out there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Plan B CRNA podcast. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed the show, I'd be honored if you took the extra time. It really helps to expand our reach and get the word out about the show. If you're a CRNA who is interested in sharing your story on our podcast, I'd love to have you. Please email me at bobby@oncallinvestments.com for more information. This episode was brought to you by OnCall Capital. They are dedicated to helping providers like you develop passive income and generational wealth through investments in the apartment and alternative investment spaces. Feel free to check out their website at www.oncallinvestments.com and subscribe to their free educational email series. You can find OnCall Capital on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also check out our YouTube page, where you'll find all of the show episodes along with other educational videos. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.